Hello, guys, gals, and non binary pals. Welcome back to the Top Hat Lounge. Tonight's episode, we'll be going over results from week 5. We'll take a look at the standings for each league. And of course, we'll be having a look ahead as we prepare for week number 6 of the LXC. I'm your host, Crewmann44. And as usual, I'm joined by some amazing guests here in the lounge that are ready to share their insights with us. Everyone, if you could please introduce yourselves, tell us your IGN, your team, your role, and share with us if you have a favorite pro team or favorite pro player.
Hey everybody, I'm Storm. Obviously, been here around here a bit. The mid laner for New Origins Phoenix. Favorite pro team is gotta be Cloud9. They were kind of always the underdog team right around the time I got into watching pro play with the old Jensen and Impact roster. And yeah,
Very nice. Great to have you back as always, Storm.
Hi everyone, I'm Poodle. I am the support for TFF Chill Guys, and I would say my favorite pro team is probably T1.
Classic. Can't go wrong there. It's the first time hearing from you this season, I believe, Poodle. Very glad you could join us
Yeah.
tonight.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Cherrie. I'm the jungler for Dorado Gaming Kai, and my favorite pro team is KT Rolster, and my favorite pro player is Deft.
Ah, very nice. Very nice. Yeah, good. I like that shout out. I'm a big Deft fan as well. Cherry, I did get to talk to you a little bit. We did a post match interview, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, but great to have you here in the lounge. Very excited to hear your thoughts tonight. Let's go ahead and jump in, guys, to the Arbiter League, our first league that we do need to discuss. Unfortunately, our other regular lounger Bubble not able to join us again this week, and it does look like her team, unfortunately, suffered the 0-2 loss in their matchup against TD Harmony. I checked the win screens. It looks like they finally learned, huh, Storm? They banned the Lux.
yeah. Looking at the game, obviously the Lux ban definitely does hurt that roster. I think there's a couple other issues that happened in that game outside of just some like champion pick issues.
Mm,
Um, Personally, I don't think we should be playing Rakan and IBSG. The champion's a little bit harder to play than it appears at face value, and I honestly probably don't think it should really be played outside of probably Emerald Up, just because like the efficiency you're going to get out of your support role lower elo Rakan just isn't going to get the same amount of something like Nautilus or some easier just engage options, whereas Rakan's really got to skate fights properly, and that can
mm,
be really hard. But it did look like Frost had quite a big impact in this series. Game 1, 13-2 on the
oof,
Yone,
yeah.
and game 2, 10-0 on the Hui. Um, Obviously, this kind of hurts the contingent being undefeated before this.
Hmm.
But maybe if you're contingent, this is where you'd rather lose this series now to be able to look into it, say, hey, this one stung a little bit, but at least we know what they're going to do by the time they have to rematch in playoffs.
Yeah, it's something we've talked a lot about here in the lounge, right? The fact that, losses can be beneficial in the sense that you can learn more from losses, and it kind of gives you more of an idea of what you need to improve on, right, as a team. So it can be really useful for that. It'll be exciting to see if Bubble and the rest of the squad can bounce back moving into that postseason. It does feel like a difficult game for the Rakan here as well, playing into a lot of CC, I feel like, on TD Harmony with this draft. The Tarek, the Amumu, the Kasante as well. Poodle, you're a support main, right?
Yeah, I am.
Your thoughts on Rakan? How would you feel about Rakan in this draft?
I feel like it's pretty strong, but definitely does have some difficulties into CC comps because you want to get yourself in there, and then everyone else just says no.
Mm,
So it gets a little bit hard to find those angles sometimes.
definitely can be. Of course, we did see Tactical Freeze also picked up the 2-0 over Jolly Roger Black Pearl. And we are going to be seeing in the first round of playoffs that matchup once again. That's going to be tomorrow, I believe. They're going to be playing that first round of playoffs in the Arbiter League. So we can go ahead and take a look at that now. Those are the stats, of course, that we do have coming up here. This next matchup for the Arbiter League. Anything jumping out at anybody on this stat page?
There'll be a day I pull up things on time, I swear.
we're just getting
Um,
warmed up for tonight's storm. No worries at all.
I mean, obviously, like these teams have been pretty evenly matched in a lot of their games, just
Yeah.
going off their stat sheets and their win screens. Um, OSG is definitely just sporting a little bit higher of a KDA by about 0.5, which can be a big deal, especially in these low reloads, just being able to control gold values. Because especially in a lot of these series, it looks like they're just kind of getting wallet smacked as less than they're like getting out comped. But I think a good thing for these teams to especially focus on, either if they're scrimming tonight or at least going into the game, is that if you're falling behind, to just try to stem the bleeding of your lanes. Because like, at the end of the day, if you're like 0-4 Renekton, you can still have value in being like 0-4 Renekton. But if you're going like 0-8, your champ's kind of a minion at that point.
Yeah,
So I think that'll be
definitely.
really important.
Yeah, being able to lose gracefully, right, is something that they talk about a lot at higher levels of play. Sort of being able to recognize when you need to take a step back and just focus only on loss mitigation, right, on making sure that you can still be somewhat useful for your team later on in the game. Any other stats here jumping out at you, Poodle or Cherry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ultimately, especially at IBSG, the only stats on the sheet that matter are the team wins and the team losses. And unfortunately for both teams, they are definitely a lot higher in the losses column than the wins,
True.
which means generally this the advice is to always just keep it simple and just play very simple comps, very simple champions, play obviously still play comfort, play what you know, but clearly like a lot of stuff is not working. And so just going back to what you know how to do rather than focusing on like, oh, like what they're gonna pick, you have to pick stuff away from them. So just pick what you know and you'll have a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
I did want to give a little shout out to Jolly Rogers for their vision stats because they have over 100 more wards placed than OSG
Wow.
in these games. And they also are killing more wards on their team, and just their vision per minute as a whole is really solid. So I would say keep that up because that's huge, especially in these lower leagues.
Glad we got our support player to chime in with that one. Good eye, Poodle. But yes, unfortunately, the vision control did not help JR Black Pearl pick up the win in this most recent matchup. While it was a 2-0 for Tactical Freeze, it looks like both of those games were pretty long, almost 40 minutes for both of them. So I assume that was a pretty close contest, and we'll have to see if it does end up going the other direction for that first week of playoffs. We can pull up the playoff bracket really quickly here. As previously mentioned, Tactical Freeze going to be going up against JR Black Pearl tomorrow night. See who's going to move on to face off against TD Harmony there in week number 2 of the postseason. Let's go ahead now and we can move on, I think, to the Sentinel League. And taking a look at last week's matchups. So a good number of 2-0s, a couple of 2-1s mixed in there as well, though. Our Sentinel representative tonight is you, of course, Poodle. Unfortunately, not quite able to pick up the win against TD Blessed. And anything you'd like to share with us about that match?
I feel like that was a really solid match overall. I feel like we had a little bit of trouble, game one, kind of getting our feet under us with it. But I felt like it was never really like a poor mental situation. Like everyone really was on top of it still. Game two, we just pulled it back and had a really clean win, which I was really proud about. And then game three was still really solid. So I'd say they were a great opponent, great team. So I don't really have any downsides with that match at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair enough.
I actually might jump in here as a little PSA to my Goat Islamic Samurai in the top lane. Someone has to remind him when not to pick Silas. I don't the Silas top game 3 into that like Urgot Diana Twitch Lulu. It's got to remember Islamic, not every game is a silence angle. That one wasn't. I still believe in you. Efron, I hope you're doing great too. You guys got to lock in. You're making me look bad.
Yeah, Silas definitely one of those picks, I think, that can be very situational, right? He's so reliant on what he's playing against, more so than a lot of other champions. So, good call out there, Cherry. But Poodle, any other matchups from this past week that you wanted to highlight for us? Any other results that you feel like were surprising or noteworthy in any way?
Um, Trying to think. I feel like it's been a lot of like up and down with like who we think is like top dogs. I know like Plasma Wolves was a really big team for a while and they're having a little bit of trouble lately. I think they had some roster switch ups. So I feel like there's no like really clear like head runners right now, which makes it more exciting in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see how this next week goes with all the switch ups that have been happening.
Absolutely. That is a really close contest, especially over there in Sector 1. We'll get into the standings more in just a little bit. For now, go ahead and take a look at our featured matchup, I believe, for this upcoming week, or are these the stats from last week? This is, yes, the upcoming matchup between OTL Obsidian and Braum Lives Matter. So we'll come to you for this first storm. You know, my stats guy, of course, as we take a look here. I assume you've pulled this one up on time?
Yeah, of course, of course, of course.
Very good, very good. What would you like to highlight for us?
Um, I know I kind of yapped about it a little bit earlier, but like KD's again, OTL at almost a 5 KD as a team compared to Braum Lives Matter at 258
Yeah, almost double.
is kind of bad because the other issue is OTL actually isn't ahead of them in kills by that much. It's only probably about 20 as a difference. But Braum Lives Matter collectively just has 100 more deaths. And they've only played 2 other games. So like if I'm Braum Lives going into this, this is pick good mid game comps that you don't have to like play out of your mind on early game to try to stem a little bit of like what's causing your games to be so coin flippy. And I think this can be a good, really good matchup between these two. The other thing is to keep in mind, OTL should be playing with a new mid laner this week, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So I don't know much about the new mid that's coming in. Obviously, Corrupt had been doing very well so far this season, so sad to see him either step down. Obviously, don't really know what's going on there, but I think it should be an exciting matchup either way to really look into.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Poodle, do you know anything about this this new mid laner situation?
I don't, unfortunately. I do not have that
No
inside
worries.
scoop to share today.
Well, how about these stats? Anything jumping out at you here? What are you expecting in this matchup between these two teams?
I've heard really good things about OTL. I don't know their team that well, but I mean, they've been performing all season so far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, looks like, you know, their vision's good, their KDA is crazy. They're very like team like fight heavy teams it seems like with like the amount of kills that they have and like the objective control that they have seems really solid. So I think it should be a good matchup for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cherrie, anything you wanted to chime in with here?
Yeah, definitely. Their drafts, and specifically, I want to highlight their jungle, Mr. Latex, involve like a lot of team fight facilitator champions like Jarvan, like Amumu, like Wukong, and they seem to have this like clear game plan where they walk up to a bunch of people, use their AoE abilities, and then kill them, and they're 10-0. So clearly, it's working. So
It's a good plan.
keep doing what you're doing. Shout out to Latex for being that team initiate, engaged guy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always such a huge boon when a team knows how they want to play together, right? When you have that sort of set style that you can just kind of practice over and over again and just really, hone to as close to perfect as possible. That can be really, really beneficial, especially in these leagues where a lot of teams don't really have that, right? A lot of teams are kind of, trying to figure things out, trying to try different stuff. So I'm glad you highlighted that for us. And also, of course, Cherrie just mentioning OTL Obsidian 5-0 right now. They are the only undefeated team in Sentinel, and should be an interesting matchup to see if they can keep that up with the new mid laner up against Braum Lives Matter on Tuesday. Taking a look now at all of the upcoming matchups for this week in the Sentinel League. Poodle, any other matchups here? It looks like your squad. Where are you at there? The cross division battle for you this week, Poodle, going up against Contingent Esports White. Should be a pretty favorable matchup. As oh no, that's not
I
right.
think we actually have a bye this week because that team unfortunately is no longer
Yeah.
competing.
That's big. You guys
So
won
I
before
get
the series
to
even was played.
Yeah, I know. I get to be a little
That's
cheerleader
good.
this week for everybody else, so it'll be really exciting.
Nice.
That's the hustle I
I'm
expect out of
excited.
Afron Islamic. Good work, guys. I'm
Yeah.
proud.
Yeah, we've impressed Cherrie now. Very good, very good. But any other matchups, Poodle, for this upcoming week that you think are noteworthy?
I'm personally interested in NE versus Plasma this week, especially as I
Yeah.
mentioned before with those roster changes. And NE's a super solid team. I know like Triumphant, like their support is super strong, and I'm very interested to see how that is going to play out. But I think just the entire roster change, especially against a hard team like that, it'll be one of the games to watch this week for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, NE coming off that 2-0 win that they picked
Hmm.
up over Hydro Pump, and for Plasma Wolves, unfortunately going down. That was, yeah, 0-2 at the hands of the rivals, Righteous' squad. So see if the Plasma Wolves are going to be able to bounce back against what you say, Poodle, is a very strong NE
Hmm.
roster. Let's take a look at the standings now for the Sentinel League. As previously mentioned, or this might have been off air that we were talking about this, but your squad, Poodle, the Chill guys, right smack dab there in the middle in this very, very close race here in the first sector. But I believe it is top 5 go to playoffs, right?
Hmm.
So in that sense, you are looking really, really good. What are your thoughts on these standings?
Um, yeah, I feel like my team, we're in a really good spot right now. You know, we started off having people in different roles, a very off role. My ADC was my mid was my ADC, my top and
Interesting.
jungle, I think, were swapped a little bit. Now we're all in our assigned seats, so it'll be okay from here on out. I feel like, as I said before, like there's a lot of opportunity for switch ups because these teams all have really good strengths for them. So there's still chances for movement, especially with like the top five, for like placement at least. But I think it's kind of clear to me where some teams might end up. But again, you never know.
You never know. You never know. Always got to play out the games, right?
Hmm.
Just to make sure. Cherry, Storm, anything you wanted to highlight here in Sector 1?
Go
Yeah,
ahead. You can go ahead,
uh,
Terry.
yeah, besides, it seems, unlike in Sector 2 where there's a clear top team, we have 3-4-1 teams. We have NLE who has, I recognize Koi and Diet Coke from Draft League and Rivals from all the pings I get about their content articles, which is big. I wish we had something like that for Warden.
Mm.
Yeah, it seems a lot closer besides the two teams that unfortunately are 1-4, rest in peace. But since it seems that these 5 teams in Sector 1 that all have above 1 win are going to be most likely the playoff wins, these matches between them are going to be very telling to see, almost like previous rematches that we might see as we get into playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. That one between Annie and the Plasma Wolves that Poodle was just pointing out for us, definitely one of those matchups that could end up being pretty consequential for these standings, right?
Hmm.
But let's go ahead and jump over to Sector 2 now. As previously mentioned, OTL Obsidian, the undefeated squad, sitting up there at 5-0. Contingent Esports White, as also previously mentioned, no longer in the league, unfortunately, and dropping point Hellfire sitting at 0-5. Looking pretty dire for that squad as well. Anything that you want to point out here, Poodle? Anything that you feel like is interesting, or any team to keep an eye on?
I will say I don't know too much about Sector 2. I don't look across the
Fair enough,
pond
yeah.
too often. But yeah, unfortunately, don't have too much insight over there.
Mm.
But again, it looks like they have some pretty close middle of the pack again. Like a lot of 3-2s, 2-3s. So, this week especially, could see some movement there. But I know Veracity has a really strong team. I've heard really good things about them, especially like their bot lane's been doing really well. So I'm excited to see how that goes this week.
Excellent, excellent. Do you want to make a prediction for that Obsidian versus Brom Lives Matter matchup?
Ooh. I unfortunately I think Obsidian is going to pull out ahead, probably 2-0 on that one. They've been doing such a good job lately.
Yeah, absolutely. Storm, you want to jump in there? Anything to add about Sector 2, or do you want to make a prediction for that matchup as well?
Uh, it sucks just kind of beating on the horse of it. Like, I think it's a 2-0 to OTL. The only way I think it goes any other way is whoever the starting mid laner comes in just kind of like kicks the bucket and really just like maybe mental booms the jungler. Like, it could be hard, but it already seems like just going by the couple of games I casted of theirs and win screens, this kind of looks like Latex is the driver and everyone else is just kind of following him. So I don't think the roster change is going to be super detrimental to them. So I don't think this is the thing that derails this train. Um, and yeah, everywhere else in Sector 2 is pretty much up for grabs. Obviously, with like our cross division games, wins and losses between the sectors can get a little wonky, but for the most part, the middle of the pack teams in Sector 2 all seem to be relatively close to each other in strength.
Definitely, definitely. At least for Brom Lives Matter, they are coming off a 2-1 victory over New Origin Veracity last week. So maybe that little bit of momentum, coupled with the new mid laner for Obsidian, perhaps doing some bucket kicking allegedly. Maybe that would be enough for BLM to make something happen there. But I think we can now, guys, go ahead and move on to our discussion of the Crusader League. Taking a look here. Storm, let's see what you got up to last week. Another 2-0 Storm, this time over the Panthers. What would you like to share with us about your results from last week?
So obviously, we may have dropped a little midnight content thing the other day that got people's feathers a little ruffled, but
Oh, I love a good
I
feather
kind of
ruffle.
stand by what I said on it. I tried to not be biased as much as I could be, just going off the information I had. I will say I think Panthers probably gave us our hardest game we had to win in that game one. Shout out to Ramen. That dude is actually a hate crime on Blitzcrank. But that game was super close, and then game two was not as close. But
Mhm.
shout out to them. That was a really fun match either way. Um, trying to think what other important matchups we had that week as well.
Yeah, take a look
Sadly, I've got to
here.
hop around 15 things here.
There's a lot of information. Yeah, a lot of info to sift through. There were a lot of 2-0s again. I feel like that's been a pretty consistent theme in the Crusader League here. A lot of these matchups seem to be relatively one-sided. Syndicate Reds is the squad that you took down in week number 4, right, Storm?
Hmm.
They were able
Yeah,
to turn things back around, picked up the 2-1 victory there over Outlaws Prometheus, so looking pretty good for them. I believe that 2-0 for Clown Gaming was actually an FF. I believe I saw that
correct.
somewhere. So that's a free win for Clown. See where they're at in the standings.
The other important matchup I want to
We're in the
say
middle.
to look at here would
Mm-hmm.
also be the Bloom Gaming and Elysian
Oh yeah,
matchup.
yeah, yeah. The
Obviously,
1-2.
like even when I made my rankings, I've got Elysium pretty up there as one or two. Obviously, it's
Mm.
hard to really judge because we don't get to play them until playoffs. But that team's super solid. But Bloom coming into this made a couple roster changes, moved a couple people around in roles, and they were one of the few teams to actually take a game off of this Elysium roster. And I think it turns into this argument of, is this because Elysium just drops a game, or is that because Bloom's making a pretty big upgrade? And by the
Mm.
looks of it, and from reading Crusader chat yapping, it seems Bloom's gotten a really big upgrade, which I'm glad to hear. I would much
Right.
rather these teams be more competitive
Yeah, yeah.
so that we can have at least a little bit more of an interesting offseason. But I think that's a really big uptick this season as that team rapidly improving and hopefully pushing for one of those lower
Yeah.
playoff seeds.
We do have the 1-2. Oh yeah, no, that's correct. For some reason, I got confused for a second. I thought the score was backwards. But yeah, definitely good for Bloom that they did find that big upgrade. They still got a little bit of time. They still got a few weeks, right, to try and pick up some more wins. But it is looking a little bit rough for them still down there towards the bottom of the standings. We'll get back into that in just a little bit. For now, let's go ahead and take a look at the stats that we have for our streamed match in Crusader this week. It's going to be those Outlaws. Unfortunately, going down again, that 1-2 loss last week to Syndicate, and they're going to be going up against OSG Arctic, another middle of the pack team over there in Sector 2. Storm, what's jumping out at you in these stats?
Um, a big thing here is games played. OSG's only has 6 games with
Mm-hmm.
also sporting a 0.9 KDA. This is something we kind of talked about. I want to say this OSG team's also made a couple of roster changes recently. One of our old podcasters used to be on this team in Taco. I think he's
Oh.
even hit a couple lane or role swaps in this. I want to say he played jungle a week or two ago, which I don't know what was up with that for that to happen, but
Interesting.
if you're outlaws, this is where you need to like solidify who's actually playing on your roster, and this is you have to win this match. If you don't win this match, your road into that 5th seed for playoffs gets dramatically harder, if not actually impossible.
Mm.
Especially now, because I want to say they've got what OSG this week, Goon Squad the following week, and then Tilt for their final week.
Yeah.
Tilt and Goon Squad are not pushover teams. You have to go into them with a set foundation of what you're going to do. And if you aren't set by the time you're playing Arctic, I am worried by the time you hit week 7 and 8. So if this
Yeah.
isn't the week they have it together, I don't know if they ever get it together.
I think that's a good call out, Storm. Absolutely, yeah. So this is getting towards the tail end of the season now. So I definitely agree. If things aren't working, then it is not looking good. But Poodle, it looks like we have a pretty big differential in terms of the vision game here again. Anything you'd like to comment on?
Yeah, I clocked that immediately.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would say, like, I mean, 800 wards placed by Prometheus is insane. I
Wild,
love
yeah.
that. That makes me so happy. Having that like 12 vision per minute too. They've placed 160 control wards. Like, please save your money, guys. A little bit, just a little. Those are expensive. But no,
Adds up.
I love teams that get out there and ward because it plays off for their objectives. I mean, they've taken so many more towers and dragons versus OSG Arctic, unfortunately. But having that vision score just really pays off for your team in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, those two stats are definitely related, right? The fact that you have all that vision facilitates the taking of the objectives
Hmm.
so nicely. Yeah. Cherry, you want to get in there? Anything interesting here for you?
Um, I don't really know if there's much to be said. I'm looking at both rosters, and Storm, I know you mentioned that OTL it's sort of a must-win match for them. I'm curious on like how strong you think this roster is, and like will they win? Because I look on paper and I think they
Mhm.
will win against OSG Arctic, but with someone more familiar with the league, I'd love to hear your opinion on it.
So on paper, yes, OTL should win this matchup. They, especially when we did our rankings earlier, I'm not super high on either of the OSG rosters. So again, they should win. But every time I've expected OTL to come out and show out, it is fallen flat on my face. Especially last week into Syndicate, I think they were super close. I think they honestly should have won. Why we're holding Poppy Alt as the enemy team's jungle standing over the other side of the wall, and we're just not throwing him to the other side of the map?
Hmm.
No idea. But
Uh,
that was a
OTL
choice.
is the team with Numa, right?
Yeah,
Oh, I hope she wins. Should make us proud.
true.
I mean, that roster, I feel like they have Marquise mid, right? I feel like you should run
Yeah.
the entirety of this OSG roster's pockets, and yeah,
Yeah, this
no more
this
violent
should
emergency.
be this is OTL's game to lose 100%.
Yeah.
But every time I give this roster like they're like, okay, they're good now. This is it. They figured it out. Someone trips.
Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, I can see that. A lot of opportunities for things to go drastically wrong, perhaps.
Yeah, I actually did get to cast one of the Outlaws matches a few weeks ago, and yeah, it definitely. I think what you guys are saying makes a lot of sense to me. I remember those games being quite competitive. I think the Outlaws, if I recall correctly, did unfortunately lose 0-2 in that match, but it felt like they were in good positions. They just ended up, making some wrong decisions in some really key moments. So it feels like maybe that kind of clutch factor is the main thing that they're missing. Definitely heavily favored against OSG here on paper, at least. So taking a look ahead now to all of our matchups here in the Crusader League for this upcoming week for week number 6. Storm, looks like your squad is going to be having a little bit of a civil war this week. The New Origin squad's Phoenix going up against the Interbots. What are your expectations going up against your sister team?
So this has kind of been a matchup we've been kind of eyeing since the start of the season. Obviously, there's a little
Yeah.
bit of, I don't want to say animosity, but the rivalries between our team kind of go pretty deep between Mustard and Striker, constantly playing back and forth on who's better. Zelda, for some reason, thinks he's better because in one draft league, he had his jungler AFK his lane the entire game, is what it is. But either way, I think this is going to be a real test for both of our rosters to see where we need to improve and where we're lacking. My only worry going into this is this Rutinium person like an actual nut job, and I just don't know it. And do we win the coin flip topside? Noxus has had a really good season so far, but so is Zerv. They both have the same play style of like they're really trying to get ahead in their lane and then translate that around the map.
Interesting.
And then the jungle matchup also is two different colors of a palette. Feldy's playstyle versus Alv's playstyle are drastically different, and I'm really interested to see how this ends up matching up. Obviously, I gotta bet on myself.
Of course.
I'm expecting to win. I don't know if it's gonna be 2-0, if it's gonna be 2-1. I think hands wise, we're pretty even across the board. So I think it'll be a good series to watch.
I think it certainly will be. I'm very excited to see those results come through as well. Any other
Yeah.
matches for this upcoming? Oh, Cherry, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the prediction that I believe Storm's team will, take the win over the other New Origins team. I think it's close, but as I'm familiar with a lot of the players, I just think like role to roles. I think specifically mid jungle is where Storm's team is going to have the advantage in order to get ahead. I believe that like Storm and Feldy are just players that when they get a lead are very good at pushing that lead and like playing around farming and choking the enemy team out. And I think that on the other side, especially like game case has those vulnerabilities that can be exploited. And Striker, while my biggest fan, I think is about even mechanically with Mustard. I think unless one of them like massively underperforms, I don't think that either of them are going to be able to like get the best over the other. So I think it is just going to come down to mid jungle gap.
Yeah, should be a close game. Storm, do you want to reflect on anything Cherry just said?
A little bit of what she said is 100% true. Obviously, playing with each other, being in the same org, and just in houses, etc. We're very aware of the issues certain people have on our own roster as well as theirs. So I don't want to say we're planning to exploit it, but if you see it, an 11 death Victor, like maybe we don't play Victor twice. I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, that always adds another layer, right? When the teams know each other so well, and you can kind of play off of the habits that you know and the weaknesses that you may know of your opponents. Definitely makes things a bit more interesting. But any other matchups for this upcoming week, Storm, that you'd like to point out for us?
I'm actually really interested to see how this Bloom Gaming roster goes into
Yeah.
Syndicate. I'm not super high on Syndicate. I think they've got a lot of like really good players,
Oh, I know
but
Lexa.
this team feels like it's just missing something, and I don't know what it is. I also don't get this Lexington hype train.
Lexa's the
Mm.
goat.
What do you?
Don't
I just
disrespect.
watched this man walked up to fucking 4-item Syndra on a Felios and just get one tapped.
Yeah, he does that sometimes, but when he's not doing that, I'm sure he's good.
But I think this
Lexington,
will be a real test for that Bloom roster with these additions to see if they can start eking out wins.
Yeah, I like that you highlight them again as a team that you already mentioned. You kind of have your eye on to see if they're going to be able to continue that upwards trajectory. Poodle, anything you wanted to add about any of these upcoming matchups in the Crusader League?
I don't know a lot of these teams, but I did want to give a small shout out to the Elysium Chocolate Pancakes. Those are some close friends of mine on that team. So I'm definitely rooting for them. I know they're going against Tilt, who hasn't had the best start so far. Hopefully, it's still a good match. But just wanted to say good luck to them for the rest of the season because it seems like they're killing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Pancakes, of course, narrowly able to pick up that win over Bloom Gaming last week. And like you say, Poodle going up against Tilt Esports this time around. Another team that's currently towards the bottom of those standings. So Chocolate Pancakes, I imagine, feeling pretty confident heading into that matchup as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the standings here for sector number 1 in Crusader. As previously mentioned, Storm Squad sitting pretty up there at the top, 5-0. Most of those 2-0 victories as well. And then Interbots, the sister team, right behind them. That matchup that you've got this week could end up determining who does actually end up taking first place here in the first sector. But anything else noteworthy here, Storm? Any other teams from sector number 1 that you wanted to comment on?
The two that kind of stick out has to be Uncaged and Clown. Obviously, Clown is going through a bit of a mid-season roster rebuild.
Mm.
So I'll be interested to see how that like final shakes out. Uncaged also had a pretty rough start to the split. I want to say they dropped like their very first 2 series, but have now started to make a resurgence, picking up those wins, getting themselves up to third in these standings. So I think that team's also really hitting their stride right when it matters, and I
Mm.
look forward to seeing them last week.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Storm. The Uncaged Bandits lost their matches in week number 1 and 2, but they are now on a 3-win streak heading into week number 6 here. So definitely ramping up. Could even be making a push towards, maybe that 1 or 2 spot as well.
Okay, let's calm down.
For the Bandits,
Bro said, hold your horses. I'm sick.
they're going up against the Goon Squad. That's the cross division matchup here in week number 6. And then they're going to have Clown Gaming in week 7. And the Bandits are going up against your squad, Storm, in week number 8. So that'll be very interesting. You're going to have the opportunity, at the very least, to push them down if they are trying to make a push towards that top 2 spot. But moving on over to sector number 2. Syndicate and the Pancakes looking pretty good up there at 4-1. The Outlaws, despite our criticisms and our hoping that they would perform a little bit better than maybe they've shown us so far, still sitting in an all right spot there, right in the middle of the standings here in sector number 2. And Bloom Gaming and Tilt really needing to start picking up some wins if they do want to get into playoff position. Anything you wanted to comment on here, Storm?
Just again looking at like the Bloom, I think Bloom's going to start picking up wins. Especially with this new roster,
Mhm.
I could very much see them winning out. The issue you have, especially in Sector 2, is Sector 1 seems to have been, at least on the high end, a little bit stronger. Elysium dropping a couple games here and there. The other issue you run into is if Bloom or Tilt start not catching these wins, like it's unironically possible OSG makes playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Mostly because they lucked out and they rolled contingent twice for FFs, which would be
Wait,
a kind of crazy thing to happen.
are both of OSG's wins via FF? Is that true?
Yes, because
Oh,
they rolled a cross
okay.
division match into contingent, and then during Rivals Week, they rolled contingent.
Interesting. Well, that is certainly pertinent information. Um, Cherrie, Poodle, anything you want to comment on for these Crusader League stats? Or standings, rather?
Yeah, I mean, we do see Syndicate, despite Storm being a bit of a hater, we do see Syndicate still at the top of Sector 2.
Yeah, yeah.
With the Luxon hype specifically, Luxon is known to be on a bit of an LP roller coaster that goes up and down. And I just went while
Uh-huh.
we were talking, checked his OPGG. He was doing pretty good on 80 carry. Then he immediately switched to mid lane and then lost 6 games. He won
Interesting.
1, but we don't count that one. He lost 6 ranked games in a row, which means that this could potentially be the start of another downfall phase for Luxodon, which unfortunately is very common and very destructive to his chances of winning. I'm always going to be a Luxodon supporter despite what he thinks, but I compared to the other 80 carries, there are a lot of strong mechanical AD carries in this league. Mustard, Striker, Luxodon, like Onset, and Resi's good too, but they all have the same problem where they have like not bad hands and they walk into the enemy team for fun. So it is just going to be a bit of AD carry spotting for the enemy team to try and shut down these carries. I think that will be determining a lot of series.
Very interesting. Yeah, Syndicate, of course, able to pick up the win last week. But going up against a Bloom Gaming Lotus, sounds like if Syndicate are on that downward trajectory and Bloom Gaming are on an upwards one, that matchup could definitely be a lot more interesting than it looks, just based on the current standings. Poodle, anything you want to comment on here before we move on to Warden?
No, nothing on my end.
Alrighty, let's go ahead and jump on over now to our last league that we do need to discuss. Your league, of course, Cherry. Let's see, how did your team do last week?
Yo, we lost. I lost to
That
Piglet
is.
Vane, bro. That guy is cracked.
Oh man, what? So is it just all because of the vein? What else went wrong for you last week?
We ran it down, and by we I mean like me and like also some of the rest of us.
Mm,
No, we played like bad. We like have been playing bad. You saw the one stream on match where we won, but that's just because the other team was worse than us, but by a significant degree. But don't let that fool you. We were playing bad. Hopefully, we have taken the steps to not play bad anymore. But yeah,
ah,
that's where my head's at right now. We also have a match in like an hour, and I still
right,
haven't
right.
checked like who we're. I mean, I know like what team we're playing, but we're gonna find out live together like who I'm playing against.
You're referencing, of course, in terms of those previous results, your 1-2 loss to the Kittens, right? The
Yeah,
NLE.
those guys. Whichever team
Yeah.
Emrys is on.
Right, right. So tonight, your matchup that you're going to be having at 8 p.m. Eastern, pretty much right after the show, it looks like you are going to be going up against UKN Cryptic. So that is the cross division
All
matchup.
right, we're gonna
UKN
get a
Cryptic
live reaction of me looking at this team roster sheet.
are currently 3-1, so might
Yeah,
be
but it's in group two. It
somewhat
doesn't
of a
count.
right, right. Of course, of course.
Yeah, I actually recognize none of these names. This is all meaningless to me. Hopefully
Okay,
we'll win. We might not. I don't
hopefully.
know.
Looks like there's one other match actually from last week that did also get postponed. That's going to be in a couple of days on Tuesday. It looks like that's going to be New Origin Direction. Still needs to face off against Team Death Knights Blue. A couple of teams currently towards the bottom over
Yeah.
there in Sector 1. But Cherry, any of these other Week 5 results that you think are interesting that you'd like to highlight?
Results. Yeah, I'd like to highlight Akuma. Which contingent esports team did they play? The good one or the bad one?
Uh, I believe
Uh,
that was the good one.
okay, the good
Um,
one. Yeah, shout
yeah.
out to Akuma. I know they had a rough start to their season. And by rough, I mean they lost to No Direction, which impressive, honestly. But I feel like a win against the top, a top team, like, oh, but now I'm looking at this Continuity Sports Black roster.
Yeah.
Like, is this? I mean, they have wins, so by
Oh,
definition, they're a top team.
yeah, that's
But
right. Yeah.
this is more indicative of the quality of player that I would, you know, that I would see on Akuma. People like Fluke and like Dwam and Polaravada and Marzian have had the results that should be of the top half of the standings team, and they've you know previously were not performing to that level. And I'm obviously biased because I play with Fluke on another team, and I'm glad to see him returning to form. Other results that are interesting. NLE beats Goofy Gooners, which I believe is a
Yeah.
team that's high on this. No, I mean they're 3-2. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, Sector 2 is like just a bunch of there's like 5 teams that are all just fighting each other and sometimes winning, sometimes losing, and then there's those like 2 teams that do not exist on that side of the standings.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does look like
I
Orel's
mean
squad tilt.
that's kind of crazy though. Sector 2 has like the bottom 2 teams is definitely not Aether and Contingent Esports Orange, and then Sector 1 has like No Direction and Team Death Knights Blue. That's like very, very like mismatch. I mean TDK is like at the bottom of our sector, but they've been like mired with scheduling issues and like in terms of quality of player, like I mean that's a pretty big mismatch. I think TDK, even though their standings are, I think they're good. they don't get to play most of their matches with Vendor, who is by I'd say definitely their best player and one of the top 80 carries like at DM 100. Yeah, sorry, I cut you off. My bad.
Oh, no worries. No worries at all. You know, obviously more about the Warden League here than I do. So any amount of time that you're talking and I'm not is, you know, a win in my book. That works for me. But I was just going to point out Tiltapothiosis Orel's squad, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, did manage to pick up the 2-0 there in week number 5, managing to bounce back from a loss that his squad picked up. I believe that was a loss to the contingent black roster in week number 4. So that's nice to see that Orel and the rest of the team was able to bounce back there. And he did highlight the Kittens and the Gooners as possibly being, you know, a couple of the other really strong squads over there in Sector 2. So seeing that 2-0 result for the Kittens is definitely interesting in that sense as well. But Cherry, you feel like it's okay? We could go ahead and move on now to some stats, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, do whatever. I'm gonna I'll find a way to flame everyone at some point. So I'll spread it out.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like we are going to take a look here at our streamed matchup this upcoming week. It's going to be the Goofy Gooners, who did, as just mentioned, lose 0-2 against the Kittens last week. They're going to be going up against UK and Cryptic, the squad that you are about to play in just about an hour or so, Cherry. So very
I'll
interesting.
let you
Taking a
know if
look at
they're
some of
good or
their
not.
stats. Yes, please do keep us
Yeah,
updated.
I'll keep you all updated on that one, gang.
But taking a look at the stats here, Cherry, what's jumping out at you?
Because I'm gonna be so for real with you. I think stats are like genuinely meaningless. Like these like big overarching team stats, I think have literally zero impact on. I mean, we'll give it a good honest look, right? But
Yeah, I mean, stats always have to be taken with a grain of salt, right? Because they don't really matter, like you say, without the context. So it is a
yeah,
little bit weird to talk about, you know, without having, you know, more tangible stuff to point to. But I still think that at the very least, you know, we can get some general themes and
yeah. We
you know, just
we
kind
can
of a
make a note
vague
of a
idea.
general theme here is that UK and Cryptic has purchased 200 more control
Uh-huh.
wards than
Uh-huh.
Goofy Gooners. So I'm gonna say that the Goofy Gooners are based and don't like to spend 75 gold on. I mean, like control wards are good, but I think like once you start thinking about like, oh guys, I need to go out of base with 2 control wards, like you've lost the fucking plot. Like it's you it's more of a thing where you'll know when you need to buy vision, and then teams that like focus on vision or like supports that focus on vision score, it's like just you know it it's less about making the number go up and putting wards in good places. And the problem is I don't know if like I don't pay attention to like is 325 words control words in 11 games a lot, or is 114 just like a really small number? I have no context to that number, but
Hmm,
I like the Goofy Gooners more. That's what I'll say. I'll say that to the
interesting.
stats. Like
It's that's
shout out
definitely
to
an
those
angle.
guys.
Enjoying the fewer control wards purchased. Poodle, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like it's a good point that they're spending a lot of money on control words. I
Yeah,
mentioned that
yeah,
earlier. It gets
you
expensive
did.
fast.
Yeah.
But also just I think it's impressive the amount of words that they've placed on Cryptic. Like 1100 is crazy.
Seems like a lot.
Um, but that
That
also
has to be
tells
too
me
many, right?
it's
That
okay,
I'm
it's
not
like
going
too many.
crazy.
It's too many, but also like that means that your whole team is warding and that it's not just your support doing the job, which I really appreciate. Because there's no way that one support is placing 1100 wards across these games. So that
Right.
means like your jungler's picking up some slack, your top laner's actually putting wards down in their lane. So it doesn't happen very
Yeah.
often up there.
I mean,
S-
I respect the team efforts, but on Dorado Kai, our jungler has to wait 3,600 gold for a death cap. So unfortunately,
Hmm.
there's just nothing. There's nothing we can
Understandable.
do
Yeah.
to get a. I'm sorry, Mocha.
Makes sense to me. But it is definitely interesting to take note of, right, Cherry? You'll have to keep that in mind, I think, for, you know, when you're playing against UK and Cryptic in just a little while. If you're not sure if they have vision of you or not,
They
they
probably
do.
do.
They
Loki,
definitely do.
that's like good. It's like, yeah, do they have a word in this right to play statistically? Sure.
Yeah, yeah, the odds are good that they have a ward in the bush. But Storm, anything you wanted to chime in with here? Anything interesting about these stats for you?
I mean, just what you said. Words are fake. Like even look at our team. Our entire top side
They're not
has a
real. They
total
can't hurt you.
combined pinks of 30 pink words bought.
Exactly.
29 of them are mine.
That makes me
At
so
the
sad. That hurts my heart.
29 of them are mine.
Oh man.
So Vision's fake.
You're hurting Poodle.
Agreed.
Come on. Ugh,
My
camera
support
died.
heart is breaking right now. This is
very
crazy.
sad.
You don't need Vision if the other team's dead. It's fine.
No,
Fair enough. Fair
real.
enough.
See,
Fair
that's why I
enough.
like Feldy. He just
Human
he's
ward.
just like a mini me. He plays like Gwen Morgana and kills them. That's that's what we need more junglers to be like. I'm so tired of playing into like Skarner players every single game. Like it's so cringe.
Well, what's not cringe is our matchups that we have coming up for week number
That's
6.
true.
Let's take
That's
a
a
look
good
at those now.
transition.
It is. Thank you. I try my best. But it looks like on Thursday, Cherry, your squad is going to be going up against Contingent. I guess that's going to be
Is that the good one or the bad
Contingent,
one?
let me see here. Give me just a moment. It is the good one. Contingent
Okay.
Black is who you're going to be facing off against on Thursday. Any thoughts about that matchup?
Yeah, we're just gonna go down the roster. Rover. Oh, it's Rover. Rover's my friend. We played on a team together like 3 or 4 years ago, back in like gold leagues. Peels is gonna rock his shit anyways.
Okay. Okay.
They have Sourcewalker, who for some reason Riot Games decided he needed to win more games, so they buffed Master Yi.
They did, didn't
Yeah,
they? Hmm.
I mean, I don't think he's. Can I say that? Can I just say that? I don't think he's good. I don't think he's good. Yeah, that's just my take
Swordwalker
on
or
it.
Master Yi?
No, Sourcewalker.
Okay,
Master
yeah,
Yi
I'm glad
Champ's
we
dumb and
clarified.
stupid. I don't know their mid laner. I think their AD carry was the player. I think he was on dropping point last Warden season, where I think his team was really good, and then his top laner got comp ruled, and then they dropped out of the league.
Oh,
And
yeah,
Loki,
hate
I
to see
like
it.
feel for him because I think his team was like good, and I think he was playing good. So I mean, he's probably good. Then their support is like
Fair
Project
enough.
Panda, and Project Panda has had a lot of success. But also every time I saw Project Panda play before this league, it was with Ajosu. And Ajosu is in like Challenger now, so we'll see like who made who. I mean he's winning without Ajosu, which is good. That's a good sign because if he like,
Mm.
if you stop playing with Ajosu and then you started losing, that'd be a pretty bad sign. But he's putting up results. I mean he has experience playing with high level players in high level leagues, and for a support, that is important to understand, high level macro. So I mean their bot lane's probably good. I mean Baywas will probably run their pockets. Baywas just like a free win hack some games, so that's cool. But yeah, I mean we could lose. We also suck, by the way, so it's anyone's game really.
All right. Well, that'll be a fun to look out for, definitely. What's our streamed match for Warden this week? Looks like we're gonna have the Kittens versus Mint Gaming. That's gonna be the one on
Oh,
stream.
yeah. Mint
Or no,
Gaming's
I'm looking in the
fun.
wrong place. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay,
That's
never
wrong.
mind.
It's Goofy Gooners versus UCAN Cryptic. Right, the stats
Okay,
we were
yeah,
just
I
looking
don't
at
I don't care
earlier.
about those guys. All right, Kittens versus Mint Gaming. Is that happening? No,
That's
I
the
think
week 8 matchup.
that's the
That's
week
in week
8
number. I was
matchup.
just
Okay,
looking
I
at the
guess I
wrong part of the sheet. Yeah.
well, I'm going to talk about Mint Gaming anyway. This
Okay,
is a
that's fine.
team that's pretty good. They've won ADL, I think, with this exact same roster once. I want to highlight their mid laner, Anthony. That guy is a psychopath. Like on the Rift, he will just solo win you games. He's a player I respect very much. I mean, I like all the Mint Gaming people, but I think their scariest player for sure is Anthony. I was talking to No Direction because they have to play against Anthony, and they recently had their
Mhm.
mid laner drop, and so finding someone suitable to a like slop into a Warden team, and B then have to put them against Anthony for the first week is not an enviable position, and I really do wish the best for them and whatever poor soul has to play against Anthony in their match. I mean, we could just go through the other teams.
Yeah.
Tilt Apotheos. These guys are high standings, right? They're 4 and
They are.
1. Okay. I don't recognize any of these. Oh, wait, I may recognize the water name. If it's the same person I'm thinking of, I think he invited me to a flex game on stream like 3 years ago. That's not useful information. I don't know if he's good or not, but I mean, he was kind of real for
Interesting
that.
analogy.
So
Yeah.
I do respect that. Let's see, Contingent Esports Orange. They like change their roster every week. Oh, Sky is back. Now Sky is mid lane. Okay. I mean, they've had
Yeah,
a bunch of roster
Orange.
changes and they're 0 and 5.
Yeah, it's
It
been rough for
in
Orange.
it's gonna be very hard for them to make it's top 5 make playoffs, right? That's
Yeah,
what someone
top
said
5,
earlier.
yeah.
I actually never knew until now. I was just sort of
Well,
showing
now
up
you
and
know.
playing League of Legends.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
gonna be rough for them just standings wise. If this new roster is good, it may just be a case of like too little, too late, because they'd have to win out and have one of the other 3-2 teams just like nuclear bomb themselves, which
Right.
rough.
Yeah.
I hope it's doable for them because I mean their roster, what they have on the sheet now, is better than what they've had in previous weeks,
Mm.
and that's the same like org that we won under last split. So I do genuinely hope they figure it out, but it
Yeah.
just the circumstances might not be there. Is there anyone else like interesting in this league? No. All right, I'm done.
Okay. Glad you got that all out of your system, Cherry. But yeah, Contingent Orange definitely been struggling so far, still at 0-5. New Origin Direction, theoretically a beatable opponent for that squad, but certainly Contingent Orange going to have to start picking up some wins right now if they do want to make a push, late season push towards those playoffs. It'd be very interesting to see, Tilt Apotheosis versus Mint, the team that you were just highlighting for us a moment ago, Cherry. That'll be fun for sure. Any other matchups in the Warden League upcoming here, Storm, that you think are worth pointing out? You're excited for?
Kind of what you said with the Total Apotheosis and I'm already
Mint.
blanking on
Oh,
what
against
team
Mint in
Mint.
week 6. Yeah.
Got the got the inside scoop or
Yeah.
experience to cast that game Anthony played in, and that to confirm Cherry's statement, that dude's a
hmm
fucking lunatic. We're building Heartsteel third on Sivir,
Wow.
Yeah, no,
and
that
we're
sounds
playing
like something
Sivir
he would
mid.
do. Yeah,
He
no,
did it on
that's
stream.
like that's standard
Wow.
Anthony behavior. And I mean, did he win that
Like,
game?
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
we're watching stream, and the next thing I know, I look down at items and I see a bunch of ruby crystals in Sivir's inventory, and my brain went, "Are we like gonna buy an MR item because we're scared of Syndra one-shotting us, even though she's like 1 in 3 right now?" And then next thing I know, he backs. He has a full heart steal, and I go, "Huh,
That's an item that you
actually
can
pretty
buy.
good."
No, I mean, the thing about Anthony is he does what he wants. That guy has taken my lunch money enough that I don't have the this moral authority to question anything he does. He could lock like Kaisa, build like 3 tank items mid, and I'd be like, yeah, no, I mean it's Anthony doing it. I'm sure he's cooking something.
Poodle,
Yeah.
anything you want to chime in with here? Any of these teams that Cherry was just discussing for us that you wanted to, mention or discuss a little bit?
So I know even less about this division than the others,
Okay.
I would say. But the one that does stand out to me a little bit that I've recognized some of the players on is ID Ignite. I
Oh.
know their ADC Kush is a really solid player. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that game goes this week, as well as like Rigor Mortis and Batman were 2 others that stood out to me from that team. I know they're facing the Team Death Knights Blue, who has had a bit of a rough start so far. But never know what's going to happen. So that's a game that I'm looking forward to seeing.
You
Excellent.
did remind me, bringing up ID Ignite. I just wanted to, now that I have this platform, I wanted to
Mhm.
extend like my heartfelt congratulations to Rigor Mortis. I think during week 1, I think he got his first series win over me in his career, which after many
Wow.
tries, and after many months of hating, I'm personally proud of him for finally reaching what seemed like an insurmountable task for him. I hope he really enjoys that and relishes that, because if he makes playoffs, he's gonna be reminded of his place. But
Well,
shout out to him. We gotta celebrate the small victories, and I'm proud of him for that.
yeah, yeah. Congratulations to him. And sounds like he will need to savor that one indeed. But I think that's a pretty nice transition into the Sector 1 standings. We can go ahead and take a look at now. You're just talking about playoffs, Cherry. Obviously, as already mentioned, top 5 are going from each of these sectors. And, ID Ignite, your own squad, looking pretty good for now at least. Of course, Contingent Black,
That
Alchemist Scimitars, and definitely not lit up there currently in the top 5 as well. But it's quite a close contest here in Sector 1 still.
um yeah, I mean standings wise, Sector 1 is the better team than Sector 2 on the virtue of not having 2-0-5 teams. Also, just
Yeah.
overall, I do think like the better players are on just if you were to I mean I'm not saying that there are like no good like teams or players in sector 2, but I think overall the strength of groups is very weighted towards sector 1. Like as much as I like shit on like Rigor Mortis and like Sword Soccer, I do think that like they are, good enough overall that it's a harder group.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, if I recall correctly, I think Aurel may have also said that he felt Sector 1 was a little bit stronger, but don't quote me on that. I'm not
yeah,
entirely sure. I don't know if
yeah.
I remember super well
Still
if
not
that's
sure
what
who
he
that
actually
guy
said.
is, but I agree with him. He seems like he
He's
has good
the
takes.
the
So,
Tilt Apotheosis support player, Aurel.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, does he lane with that water guy? Yo,
Exactly right.
yo,
Exactly right.
if you're watching, can you ask Water if he was the dude that like invited me to that flex game years ago? It's like been on my mind for the past 30 seconds since I saw that name. So I'm not gonna like, it's gonna bug me until I figure that out.
We'll definitely keep us updated on that as well. I am sure they are watching. Hope maybe they're answering in chat as we speak. I'm not entirely sure. But for now, let's turn our attention over to Sector 2. Those standings, of course, the squad we were just discussing, Tilt Apotheosis, towards the top there at 4-1, alongside the Kittens. And then the squad you're going up against tonight, Cherrie, UK, and Cryptic right there at 3-1 right now, tied with Mint. And then, of course, our couple of 0-5 squads, unfortunately, down there towards the bottom. Anything you want to point out here in Sector 2, Cherrie?
Yeah, I know NLE is very strong. I don't know if they got their new top laner in. They had Piglet filling in, and I mean Piglet on the Vayne. Yeah, I mean I have to give that dude his flowers. That dude just like ran our pockets.
Mm.
That I don't know if he's their like permanent replacement. I can't imagine that he would be for as good as his Vayne is. We can't ban that. Other people can ban that too. I do know that they were trying to get another top laner in. I don't know if that ended up actually working out. I mean, if they get a solid top laner, I mean, Emrys is good. Emrys was like the only real player in last season of Warden that wasn't on our team. So I mean, I have respect for him. And then these three like new players that they've added to this NLE squad are like, they played good. So I mean, as long as they can have a top laner that's consistent and does what that team needs, I'm sure they will be good. You can add
Yeah.
TBD in 2 hours. So give you a written response if you want.
Oh, please. Yeah, that'd be great.
Tilt. I mean, they're also just like doing good. Problem is, I just like have no idea how any of them play. I have not seen a single game of them. But if they're winning, they're probably good, or at least they're probably better than the other teams. Yeah, I mean it's 5-team playoffs and there's 5 teams with wins, so it's pretty clear who we're going to be seeing
Right.
in postseason and who we won't be seeing. So I mean that's
Mhm.
yeah, we have a lot of room to see who will be the best like past regular season.
Certainly. It will be interesting to see. Did you just get a quick note from our producer? It looks like Piglet was the sub top laner. So they should have a new one, I believe, this week. But the Kittens, they are going to be going up against the side of definitely not Aether, one of those winless squads over there in Sector 2. So definitely should be a matchup that the Kittens are feeling pretty confident in, even if they are, debuting a new top laner who's maybe still getting accustomed to the roster. Should be looking pretty good there, looking like potentially another win for them. But Storm, Poodle, anything you wanted to add about these Warden League standings?
I think Cherry
Um,
kind of covered it in pretty good regards. A lot of Sector 2s, the playoffs are pretty much set. Definitely that Aether would have to go completely win out for the rest of this to even get a chance. I think that would be hard. Sector 1, there's a world No Direction can start cheeking out some wins to try to push Definitely Not out of the playoffs and grab that 5th seed. I know they've still just been dealing with roster issue left and right, but hopefully they get it figured out. But other than that, I think we're starting to see what's going to be kind of locking up to be the playoffs for this
Yeah,
division.
looking like it. Poodle, did you want to?
yeah, all I was gonna say is, I don't have a ton on the actual standings of the sectors, but Tilt Esports name, Apotheosis, I've never had to Google what someone's team name meant before. That was, and for anyone wondering,
Apotheosis
yeah, it's
it's
like the culmination or the peak of something. Just a fun fact of the day.
it
I didn't know that before today.
it also is the name
Um,
of Nyla's ultimate. Fun fact.
love
Oh,
that.
I thought it was a
Yeah.
W.
No, her W's I believe Jubilant Veil. I played too
oh,
much
I
of that
think you're right.
champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to say I thought that was a crazy name and awesome
Yeah,
because I've never had to Google what someone's team name meant before. So
very cool. Fun note there, Poodle. Thank you very much. But I think that is pretty much going to do it for our discussion of the Warden League and everything we needed to cover for this week in the Top Hat Lounge. We're just going to go ahead and give you guys your shout outs now, of course. Storm, coming to you first, as usual. Your shout outs, please, for this week.
Again, thank you all for coming out, watching. Shout out to Naysayer for being the other person to make some Crusader content, so people can stop throwing pitchforks at me. Maybe we'll collab on like a postseason one. Who knows?
That would be fun, definitely. And Storm, of course, thank you for being here for another week. Poodle, your shout outs, please.
yeah, just thanks for having me on, and I'd say shout out to my team for being so supportive this year, and then just shout out to Triumphant over on NE. He's been doing great this season. So
Fantastic. Glad you could join us tonight, Poodle. Good luck in your games this week. Cherry, your shout outs, please.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to shout out Efron and Islamic from Sentinel again. Just want to remind them that they need to lock in or they'll be making me look bad. And I'd like to shout out all 4 of my teammates for putting up with me. Thank you.
Glad we were able to revisit that. And thank you, Cherry, for being here tonight. Always nice to get a little bit of extra spice here in the lounge. Much appreciated. And that's going to do it from us tonight, guys. Remember, the Warden League or the Arbiter League playoffs start tomorrow night. Be sure to tune in for that from us here in the lounge. That's all for now. Thank you, everybody, very much for watching. Have a great night.